Alone in a dark hotel suite, Prince Harry stares at a screen. His phone lights up with Meghan's name, but he doesn't answer. What happened to the once vibrant royal who walked away from the palace for love and freedom? Insiders now paint a bleak picture: fast food wrappers, empty whiskey bottles, and a man retreating into late-night gaming and isolation. Room service logs confirm it. He's not just checked out of royal life, he may be checking out emotionally. And Meghan? She's calling, but he's letting it ring out. Tonight, we uncover the hidden collapse behind palace doors and explore what Harry's silent unraveling really means. Stay with us. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The lights inside Suite 1103 at an exclusive Beverly Hills hotel remain on well past 3 in the morning. Through a narrow slit in the blackout curtains, a ghostly blue hue spills out from a television screen, flickering in sync with the rhythmic clicks of a game controller. Inside, Prince Harry is reportedly slouched in an oversized armchair, barefoot, wearing the same hoodie he's had on for 3 days. On a table next to him, a half-eaten cheeseburger lies in its cardboard shell, congealed fries sprawled beside an untouched chocolate milkshake. A near-empty bottle of whiskey rests at his feet, a melting ice cube still clinking faintly inside the glass he's barely sipped from. His phone rings again. It's Meghan. But he doesn't even glance at the screen. He just lets it ring out. This is not a scene from a psychological drama, nor the exaggerated retelling of a fallen celebrity. This is, according to hotel insiders, friends of the family, and a string of internal sources, the daily reality of the Duke of Sussex. What was once a gilded life, defined by royal duty, international acclaim, and a glamorous marriage, now appears to have crumbled into private despair, marked by silence, fast food wrappers, and isolation behind five-star doors. The story you're about to hear is not just about a broken man. It's about the collapse of a fairy tale. It's about what happens when the weight of the crown is traded for freedom, only to discover that freedom can be its own kind of prison. This is the inside story of Prince Harry's descent from global icon to a solitary figure surviving on delivery apps, whiskey, and late-night video games. It's about the marriage that was once a revolution but is now a question mark. And it's about what the people around him are saying, those who watch him unravel from the shadows, unsure whether to step in or walk away. It wasn't supposed to be like this. When Harry and Meghan stepped down from royal duties in early 2020, the world held its breath. Their escape to North America was framed as bold and historic, a modern couple choosing love, independence, and the opportunity to chart their own path. They secured lucrative deals with Netflix and Spotify. They purchased a sprawling mansion in Montecito. They launched the Archwell Foundation and proclaimed their mission to do good on a global scale. But somewhere along the way, the bright promise dimmed. Their media ventures faltered. Public goodwill waned. Friends quietly fell away. And behind Meghan's polished public appearances, Harry appeared less and less until he stopped appearing altogether. When he did surface, his eyes looked tired. His smile strained. His movements unsure, as though he'd forgotten who he was performing for. Then the rumors began. At first, they were whispered in tabloids and murmured across royal-watching blogs. Harry's not happy. He misses his family. He's feeling lost. But over the past several months, the whispers have taken form. Sources from inside luxury hotels in California and New York have provided compelling glimpses of a man no longer tethered to his past or his future. A man who avoids phone calls from his wife, who spends hours gaming online with strangers, who rarely ventures outside unless it's in the dead of night, and who, reportedly, finds comfort not in company, but in silence, food, and drink. Why does this matter? Because Prince Harry was never supposed to end up this way. He was the rebellious yet beloved royal, the soldier who served on the front lines, the founder of the Invictus Games, the man who once said he'd do anything to protect his family. He was the bridge between royalty and reality, the one who made the institution feel human. And now, he may be slipping away from both. The emotional toll of his journey, across continents, relationships, institutions, and belief systems, has left a visible scar. And it's not just on Harry. It's on his marriage, on his children, on his relationship with his father and brother, and on the global perception of what it really means to live outside the royal machine. Through dozens of interviews, confidential emails, leaked room service logs, and first-hand testimonies, this report will take you inside the life of a man who once walked behind his mother's coffin with stoic grace, and who now, decades later, walks alone down hotel hallways, clutching a bottle and avoiding eye contact with staff. This is not a story that blames Meghan. Nor is it a smear campaign. It's not about politics, nor gossip for gossip's sake. This is an investigation into what happens when pressure, pain, and public scrutiny go unchecked. When a man tries to escape his demons by running, only to find they followed him all the way to California. When a life built on duty unravels into a cycle of isolation and emotional numbness. Meghan, according to sources, is doing everything she can to hold the sinner. She's managing their brand. She's booking appearances. She's pushing for new ventures. And she's calling again and again, trying to reach him. But as one close associate puts it, he's not there. Not mentally. Not emotionally. Maybe not even physically anymore. The video you're about to see will follow this story through 14 deeply reported chapters, starting with the hotel room that has become Harry's personal refuge and ending with a question that no one, not even the royal family, seems ready to answer. What comes next? This isn't about judgment. It's about understanding. And sometimes, the most heartbreaking stories aren't the ones that explode in scandal, but the ones that wither quietly, night after night, behind a locked door. This is Prince Harry's story as you've never seen it before. And by the end of this video, one question will linger long after the screen goes dark. If even a prince can get lost, what hope do the rest of us have? Are you ready to go inside? It begins every night just after midnight. The room goes dim, the lights reduced to a faint amber glow from a side lamp beside the couch. The television flickers to life with a glowing login screen. A username appears, untraceable, but oddly familiar to those who've started noticing the pattern. Within minutes, the sounds of virtual gunfire, engines revving, and occasional bursts of laughter fill the suite. Prince Harry is online again. Alone, locked in a 5-star suite, headphones clamped over his ears, controller in hand, navigating digital battlegrounds while the real one, his life, crumbles in silence just outside the screen. Gaming wasn't always a part of his world. Not in the serious way it is now. Friends from his past recall a man who enjoyed life off-screen. He preferred rugby, motorcycles, dogs, hikes, social gatherings, and above all, real-world interactions. The Harry who once beamed in Africa with injured veterans, who cracked jokes in Apache helicopters, and who hosted his friends at Kensington Palace barbecues. That Harry never needed an avatar to escape through. But in recent months, according to several people close to him, gaming has become more than a pastime. It has become a coping mechanism, a substitute for the structure, affirmation, and adrenaline he once derived from his military service and royal duties. In this virtual world, there are no expectations, no press hounding him, no protocols to follow. There is only the mission at hand, the screen, the silence, and the illusion of control. According to one source familiar with his daily patterns, Harry sometimes plays until sunrise. His go-to genres include competitive first-person shooters and tactical survival games, fast-paced, immersive, and relentless. Titles like Call of Duty, Escape from Tarkov, and Fortnite have reportedly become his companions. The irony is haunting. A man who once experienced real war zones now spends hours immersed in their simulated versions, detached from the consequences but just close enough to feel something. A tech industry insider who maintains contact with high-profile streamers says that Harry has been spotted on servers frequented by semi-famous online players, though under an alias. He doesn't use voice chat often, and when he does, his accent gives him away, the insider said. He's not trying to be social, he's trying to disappear. You can hear it in the way he talks. He's there, but not present. Like a guy just filling time. Some of the people he games with, according to hotel staff who've overheard parts of his conversations, are strangers, anonymous players from around the world who have no idea they're sharing a mission with a British prince. Others, they suspect, are from his military days. Still others might be former colleagues from Royal Security or Invictus Games circles. But what's clear is this: the conversations are mostly shallow. Game-related talk. Short bursts of camaraderie. The kind of banter that gives the illusion of connection without any of its burdens. A source close to Meghan revealed that she's tried to limit his gaming in the past, especially after he began staying in hotels more frequently. It started as a way for him to relax after long days, the source said. Then it turned into an all-night habit. He'd miss morning calls. He'd sleep through meetings. It became a real problem. Meghan reportedly arranged wellness check-ins, scheduled early virtual events to nudge him into waking up earlier, and even had a staff member assigned to subtly monitor his habits. But nothing stuck. If anything, he became more evasive. It's not difficult to understand the appeal. Online, Harry isn't judged. He isn't reduced to tabloid headlines or dissected on social media. He isn't the spare, or Meghan's husband, or Charles's second son. He's just a player, equal, unseen, untouchable. There is no monarchy in multiplayer mode, no scandal in a shared mission. Yet the addiction has consequences. Several sources say his gaming sessions have interfered with important obligations, both personal and professional. Calls with Archewell stakeholders have been missed or rescheduled at the last minute. His absence from Meghan's recent appearances hasn't gone unnoticed, especially as she continues pushing their brand forward with solo events and interviews. Insiders note that when she returns home from work trips or press runs, she often finds Harry still in the same position she left him, controller in hand, headset on, a cold meal beside him. There's another layer to this dependency. According to reports, Harry has found a dangerous pairing in his routine: gaming and alcohol. Room service logs confirm frequent late-night orders of beer, spirits, and sugary mixers. Paired with the stimulatory effects of video games, this creates a volatile, emotional cocktail. The gaming keeps him wired, the alcohol numbs the edges, and together they drag him deeper into the night. A psychologist familiar with royal mental health cases, speaking anonymously, offered insight into what this pattern might suggest. When someone retreats into digital escapism, especially following trauma or loss of identity, it's often a way of avoiding internal pain. Gaming offers predictability and control. The real world doesn't. For someone like Harry, who's lived through a mother's death, military deployment, public scrutiny, and family estrangement, it can be a seductive form of self-protection. The most tragic element, however, is what gets lost in the hours spent gaming. Time with his children, conversations with his wife, rebuilding with his family, opportunities for healing, all traded for pixelated victories and anonymous teammates. A hotel technician shared a peculiar anecdote. The Wi-Fi in Harry's suite is upgraded to the highest private bandwidth tier available, custom installed with a dedicated signal booster just for him. It's not just for convenience. It's because his sessions are so long and bandwidth heavy, regular hotel internet caused crashes. He noticed. He complained. The hotel responded. He was polite about it, the technician said, but firm. It was the only time we saw him get truly animated. Animated. Not about work. Not about family. About the speed of his digital escape. At times, hotel staff say they hear him laughing, swearing, shouting at the screen. These outbursts contrast sharply with his usual quiet. There's life in those moments, but it's trapped within a screen, not shared with anyone real. It's energy without purpose, connection without intimacy. Occasionally, he posts vague photos or quotes on burner social media accounts. Images of digital landscapes, motivational phrases, even cryptic one-liners like "headshot in the dark equals clarity in real life." Those who follow these accounts out of curiosity or suspicion have shared screenshots, convinced it's him behind the profile. But he never reveals his name, never interacts. He's watching, lurking, playing, never participating beyond the screen. A recurring concern among insiders is whether this spiral is sustainable. One former aide put it plainly: he's trading real life for something that doesn't exist. That's the problem with these kinds of escapes. Eventually, the game ends. The screen goes dark. And what's left? The question isn't whether gaming is inherently bad. Millions of people use it to relax, socialize, or even heal. The issue is context. And in Harry's case, it's not about leisure, it's about withdrawal. The games have become a refuge from a collapsing reality, and with each hour logged online, the walls around him thicken. Family members, particularly Prince William, are reportedly alarmed by the stories reaching them. One source claims William wanted to reach out weeks ago after hearing from a mutual acquaintance that Harry hadn't left the hotel suite in days. But Charles allegedly advised against it, wary of triggering more public drama. It's delicate, the source said. They don't want to push him away even further. But watching him vanish is its own kind of agony. Meanwhile, Meghan continues to juggle their joint commitments mostly alone. She fields the press, oversees brand strategy, and navigates a public increasingly critical of their authenticity. In private, she's said to be frustrated and hurt, having expected Harry to be her co-captain in the empire they were building. Instead, she's found herself walking red carpet solo, answering questions about a husband who's become increasingly hard to explain. As we peel back another layer of this unraveling story, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Harry's late-night gaming sessions are not just a habit. They're a symptom of fatigue, of emotional erosion, of a man trying to fill a void that no digital victory can satisfy. The next section will explore what happens when he shuts the game off, and the silence returns, particularly the silence between him and Meghan. We'll dive into the mounting tension caused by his refusal to answer her calls, the emotional toll it's taking, and how close this rift may be to breaking entirely. The sweet phone rarely rings, and when it does, it's ignored. It started subtly, those first few missed calls. At first, they were excused. Maybe he was asleep. Maybe he left his phone on silent. Maybe he was deep in a work call or consumed in a project for Archewell. But as days turned into weeks, those who observed the growing chasm between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle began to notice a disturbing pattern. Harry wasn't missing the calls. He was actively avoiding them. Sources inside the luxury hotel where Harry spends long stretches confirm that his personal cell phone lights up with Meghan's name at regular intervals. Calls, messages, video chats, sometimes spaced by hours, other times back-to-back. They come early in the morning and late into the night. But the phone often remains untouched, buzzing against the marble nightstand, left to ring out. One staff member, assigned to deliver a breakfast tray around 8 a.m., recalled hearing the muffled sound of Meghan's distinct ringtone vibrating repeatedly on the bed. Harry didn't move. The tray was placed quietly near the desk, and the staff member backed out. But that moment stuck. It was like watching someone waiting for the noise to stop, the employee later said. Not answering out of anger, but almost out of numbness. He just didn't care. What exactly is driving this silence between husband and wife is subject to speculation, but the emotional weight is undeniable. Meghan, known for her meticulous attention to brand image and media control, is reportedly frustrated, hurt, and increasingly anxious about Harry's withdrawal, not just from the public eye, but from her. According to two people close to the Sussexes, she's been attempting to maintain appearances while managing what feels like a personal implosion behind closed doors. She's still doing the interviews, the events, the charity work, said one source. But behind the scenes, she's calling and texting constantly. She's not getting through. This isn't the first time Meghan and Harry have faced relationship tension. Their dynamic has always been layered, passionate, politically charged, and under constant scrutiny. But insiders suggest that something has shifted recently. The tension is no longer about external pressures, paparazzi, tabloids, or family feuds. It's become internal, personal, rooted in behavior that, until now, was largely hidden from the public. A friend of Meghan's, who spoke under condition of anonymity, revealed that the Duchess initially dismissed Harry's retreat as temporary. She thought he just needed space, the friend said. She told us, he's decompressing. It's been a rough year. But after a while, it became clear this wasn't about decompressing. He was shutting her out. The refusal to answer her calls is more than a sign of marital strain. It's a psychological wall, built brick by brick through avoidance, withdrawal, and perhaps resentment. Every ignored message, every missed video chat, compounds a sense of abandonment. And yet, Meghan reportedly continues to reach out, often resorting to staff or aides to check in when her direct communication fails. There have been times, one hotel insider noted, where Meghan has called the front desk, pretending to be checking on a reservation or trying to connect with another name on file. Everyone knows it's her. She's trying to reach him without making it look like she's desperate. But desperation may be creeping in. As Harry remains unresponsive, Meghan is left in a peculiar and painful limbo, publicly advocating for mental health, family values, and transparency, while privately contending with a partner who won't pick up the phone. She's seen arriving at events alone, smiling for the cameras, her ring still in place. Yet the narrative behind those images may be unraveling. A body language expert who reviewed recent footage of Meghan suggested something subtle but telling. Her smile is still strong, but the eyes don't track with the mouth. There's a visible tension in her jaw, classic signs of someone holding back deep stress or emotional exhaustion. Meanwhile, Harry's disconnection continues to grow. Those who work within the hotel say he rarely even mentions Meghan in passing. No flowers delivered. No scheduled private dinners. No visible signs that he's preparing to see her or expecting her to visit. It's as if, in this isolated pocket of existence, she doesn't exist. What's even more troubling is the emotional implication behind that silence. Ignoring someone you love isn't just a passive act, it's an active one. It sends a message. Whether that message is anger, confusion, detachment, or emotional fatigue, it leaves a mark. Every missed call is a fracture, and fractures, left unattended, become splits. Those close to the couple say that Meghan has tried multiple approaches: pleading, reasoning, gentle reminders, voicemails full of encouragement and love, even short, humorous texts meant to lighten the mood. Nothing has worked. Her calls go unanswered. Her messages left unread or unopened entirely. At one point, according to a Montecito neighbor, Meghan was seen pacing outside their estate, phone pressed to her ear, visibly frustrated. She was overheard saying, "I don't understand why he won't just talk to me. I'm not the enemy." It was the kind of remark made in desperation, when all other routes have failed and only raw emotion remains. It's unclear if Meghan knows the full extent of Harry's lifestyle while he's away. Whether she's seen the empty whiskey bottles, the drawn curtains, the stack of uneaten room service trays. Whether she's aware of the late-night gaming marathons and solitary walks through service corridors. If she does, she's saying nothing publicly. But even silence can scream volumes. Some believe Harry's avoidance is rooted in deeper psychological distress. That it's not about Meghan specifically, but about everything. The pressure, the expectations, the role he's been assigned in the public narrative, as protector, as rebel, as husband, as father, as son. He's tried being all those things. And perhaps, in the quiet of a hotel room, he's finally admitting to himself that he can't be any of them right now. Others suspect that the avoidance is strategic, a way to punish, to control the narrative, to remind Meghan that he still has some power in their shared orbit. When you're married to someone as media-savvy as Meghan, said one former friend, silence can be your only weapon. He knows that not answering hurts her more than shouting ever would. But whatever the reason, the result is the same, an emotional rift growing wider by the day, with no bridge in sight. The few people who have managed to reach Harry describe him as guarded, aloof, and increasingly cynical. He's suspicious of everyone, said one acquaintance. He questions motives. He second-guesses every gesture. It's like he's building an emotional fortress no one can breach, not even Meghan. Perhaps the most haunting detail comes from a housekeeper who cleaned the suite during one of Harry's absences. She noticed something odd on the desk, an old, worn photograph of Harry and Meghan during their engagement, half covered by a hotel magazine. The frame was dusty, not placed on display, but tossed aside, almost forgotten. The symbolism was chilling, a love once celebrated, now fading into the background. Is this the end? Not necessarily. But it's a signal, a bright, flashing warning that something is dangerously close to breaking. A marriage built on mutual defiance, shared pain, and global scrutiny can only withstand so much internal silence before it starts to collapse. As we move into the next chapter of this story, we'll shift from the emotional toll to the outside perspective. What are the hotel staff really seeing? What do the room logs, service patterns, and behavioral details reveal about Harry's state of mind? Behind every polished guest experience at a five-star hotel lies a network of watchful eyes, employees trained not just to serve, but to observe. These staff members, housekeepers, concierges, bellhops, waiters, security guards, operate quietly in the background, their presence designed to be invisible, their discretion absolute. But when a high-profile guest like Prince Harry becomes more than a transient visitor, when he begins to live in the shadows of the hotel's upper floors, their observations start to tell a different story. Not of a man on a temporary escape, but of one who may be quietly unraveling behind gilded doors. Suite 1103 had been reserved under a discreet name. That's standard protocol for guests of his stature. But it didn't take long for the staff to realize who the occupant was. Even in a city that hosts celebrities weekly, Prince Harry still carries a uniquely recognizable presence, although, according to staff, he does everything possible to minimize it. He keeps his hood up even when no one's around, said a housekeeper. Not out of arrogance. It's like he's trying to hide from something, even in a place built to protect his privacy. The suite itself tells its own story. In normal circumstances, housekeeping enters once or twice a day to tidy up. Not with Harry. His preferences quickly became clear. Minimal intrusion, no housekeeping unless specifically requested, no turn-down service. For several days at a time, no one would step foot inside. And when they finally did, the room would show the marks of someone not just living there, but collapsing into routine. One staff member recalled entering after a 4-day stretch without service. It was dark. Every curtain was drawn. The air was stale, smelled like fast food and cologne. There were empty takeout containers on nearly every surface. Burger wrappers, pizza boxes, half-drunk cans of energy drinks. The minibar had been cleared out and refilled twice. And in the corner, a single pair of military boots placed next to a chair, untouched, as if he brought them with him to remember something, but couldn't bring himself to put them on. Hotel management discreetly reviewed the room's digital log. Room service orders were extensive, multiple deliveries per day, often after midnight. Burgers with extra cheese, deep-fried snacks, sugary desserts, cocktails, whiskey. No pattern of healthy eating. No sign of shared meals. Always ordered for one. "There's no doubt about it," said one senior kitchen staffer. "We have high rollers who live large." But this was comfort eating. This was someone who wanted to feel something through food. Cleaning crews noticed something else. Harry's room, despite the luxury surroundings, felt disheveled. Not dirty, not unkempt in a traditional sense, but emotionally chaotic. Unfolded laundry in the corner. A half-packed suitcase opened but untouched for weeks. Books scattered on the bed, most of them unopened. A laptop constantly plugged in, even when he wasn't using it. Several times, the cleaning staff would find the television still playing even when no one was in the room, paused on a gaming screen or playing ambient background noise on a loop. It was like he couldn't handle silence, a cleaner shared. There always had to be something playing in the background. A distraction. Then there were the calls. Not the ones he answered, but the ones he didn't. Hotel staff would routinely pass by the suite during routine checks or deliveries and hear his phone ringing. Meghan's name was never confirmed, but a few staffers who got a glimpse of the screen noticed the same number calling repeatedly. It would ring, vibrate, light up, and then stop. Never answered. Never returned. "You'd expect someone to at least glance at the screen," one staffer said. He didn't even reach for it. Security staff, too, took note of his patterns. Their job wasn't to monitor Harry specifically, but when a guest begins acting outside the norm, patterns are documented. Harry's comings and goings were sporadic, usually late at night or very early in the morning. No guests. No visitors. Occasionally, he would leave with a hoodie pulled over his head, walk for a few blocks, and return silently through the side entrance. Once, a concierge offered him a car service for a dinner booking, assuming he had plans. He declined. "I'm not meeting anyone," he said, before retreating upstairs. The head of room service shared an encounter that still bothers him. Around 2 a.m., he was called to Harry's suite to deliver an unusual late-night request: 2 orders of chicken tenders, a milkshake, and a bottle of whiskey. The door opened slowly. Harry stood in the doorway, eyes tired, wearing a hoodie and sweatpants. He didn't speak at first, just nodded. When he did finally speak, his voice was hoarse. "Thanks," he mumbled. Then he paused, as if trying to find more to say. But nothing came. He took the tray, gave a weak smile, and closed the door. It wasn't rudeness, the staffer recalled. It was sadness. I don't know how else to describe it. He looked like a man trying not to break. A day later, the tray was still in the hallway. The whiskey bottle had been emptied. These moments, though small and seemingly inconsequential, begin to paint a portrait far more revealing than any tabloid cover. It's a mosaic of habits, silence, and withdrawal. And the staff, trained to keep their heads down, can't help but notice. They've seen celebrities at their best and worst, but few have seen someone with such prestige sink so quietly into the background. "He's polite," said the housekeeping manager. "Always says thank you. Never rude. But it's not normal. He's not doing well. Anyone who says otherwise hasn't seen what we've seen." Concierge staff have also noted that Harry has no regular visitors. Unlike other long-term celebrity guests who host dinners, invite friends, or rotate assistants, Harry is alone. No delivery drivers know his name. No mail arrives. No flowers. No packages. Just one man in a quiet room, gaming, eating, drinking, and disconnecting. A few staffers, moved by concern, have even broken the unspoken code of detachment. One attempted to check in casually, asking if he was enjoying his stay. Harry reportedly nodded and said, "It's quiet. That's all I need." Another offered to bring up fresh flowers for the suite. Harry declined. "No need. I won't notice them anyway." Perhaps the most chilling observation came from a night porter who spotted Harry in the lobby at nearly 4 a.m. The lobby was empty except for one cleaner polishing the floor. Harry stood there, staring out the glass doors into the darkness. He wasn't moving, just standing. No phone in his hand, no luggage, no sign of waiting for a ride. After several minutes, he turned around, walked slowly back to the elevator, and disappeared upstairs. It was like he wanted to step out, the porter said, but couldn't bring himself to do it. This behavior isn't easily dismissed as eccentricity or introversion. For a man who once thrived in the public eye, who led causes, charities, and military events, such retreat signals something deeper, something not being addressed, something quietly eroding behind the scenes. Even more telling is the contrast. In the same city, his wife continues to attend premieres, give speeches, shake hands, and campaign for social justice. She's on red carpets while he hides in corridors. She's on camera while he plays in the dark. And the hotel staff see this contrast not as drama, but as imbalance. One partner still fighting, the other slipping away. The question among employees is no longer who he is, but how long he'll stay. Not just in the hotel, but in this state of detachment. Will he check out? Will he go home? Will he break the silence? Or will the weight of this isolation become too heavy to lift? As one longtime staff member put it, we don't gossip. That's not what this is. But we care. You can't see someone unraveling in slow motion and pretend it's fine. It's not fine. It's not normal. And it's not sustainable. As we transition into the next section, we'll explore the before and after, the version of Harry that once lit up rooms, made headlines for his energy and charisma, and commanded attention through action and humor. And we'll compare it to the man he has become now. Something changed. And it may help us understand what Harry is truly running from. To understand how far Prince Harry has withdrawn from the world around him, we must first look back to the man he once was, not the tabloid prince, not the controversy-ridden royal, but the dynamic, animated, and purpose-driven individual who once captured the admiration of people across continents. That man, often described by his inner circle as spirited and fiercely loyal, seemed to embody a rare blend of royal dignity and everyman relatability. For years, Harry was the magnetic heart of the British royal family's younger generation. His natural humor and self-deprecating charm made him a standout figure not just in the UK, but internationally. Crowds gathered to see him. Veterans respected him. Children adored him. Journalists remarked on his candor, his energy, his unapologetic humanity. He was the one who gave reporters honest answers when others gave scripted remarks. He was the one who danced with locals on royal tours, who pulled pranks at public events, and who always managed to bring levity to the often stiff royal proceedings. Even in the wake of his mother's death, a tragedy he bore in front of the entire world at just 12 years old, Harry somehow carried the burden with a kind of rugged grace. While he later admitted that he buried the trauma for decades, he never used it as a shield. He marched with fellow soldiers through war zones. He joked with children at charity events. He co-founded Cinebale to support vulnerable children in Lesotho. In those years, his purpose was visible and active. And then came the Invictus Games. If there was ever a moment that defined the old Harry, it was this. The games were not just a pet project. They were a personal mission. He had seen firsthand what combat did to soldiers, the physical injuries, the mental scars, the quiet decay of dignity. Invictus became a powerful vehicle to restore that dignity, and it was through this endeavor that Harry flourished. He was hands-on. He was present. He led from the front, shaking every hand, attending every event, sometimes staying long after cameras left. At those games, Harry was more than a royal. He was a man on a mission. He shared beers with amputees. He sat in wheelchairs beside veterans competing in basketball. He celebrated victories with contagious joy and comforted losses with a firm hand on the shoulder and an understanding nod. In those moments, he wasn't performing. He was simply being himself, visible, engaged, purposeful. But that was before everything shifted. The transition began when Harry and Meghan announced their decision to step back from royal duties in 2020. The statement, posted to social media and immediately consumed by a media frenzy, sounded decisive and optimistic. They would become financially independent. They would continue to honor our duty to the Queen. They would carve out a progressive new role. The language was ambitious, forward-looking. But beneath the surface, things were already beginning to unravel. The move to North America promised liberation from royal constraints, but in reality, it unmoored Harry from the very structure that had once given him clarity. The palace, for all its faults, had kept him grounded. His calendar was full. His causes were real. His staff were loyal. Outside of it, he was free, yes, but directionless. And freedom, as many come to learn, is most dangerous when paired with unresolved trauma. In California, the old Harry began to flicker. At first, he tried to maintain appearances, interviews, public statements, the explosive Oprah Winfrey sit-down. There, we caught glimpses of his old conviction, his desire to protect Meghan, his indignation at how the institution had treated them. But even then, something had changed. His body language closed off. His answers measured, but shadowed by defensiveness. The laughter was gone, the ease replaced with unease. As the months wore on, public appearances became less frequent. Meghan surged ahead, product launches, campaigns, television projects, podcasting initiatives. Harry, once side by side with her, began to fade into the background. When he did appear, he looked older. Not in years, but in spirit. His eyes, once animated, had dulled. His speech slowed. His posture more guarded. Friends from his UK circle noticed it immediately. He used to light up the room, said one former army buddy. Now, it's like he's trying not to be seen at all. Invitations to join events went unanswered. Old WhatsApp group messages sat unopened. He disengaged from veteran communities he had once championed. People didn't hear from him for weeks, then months. When they did, his responses were vague, non-committal, detached. Even his style changed. Gone were the sharply tailored suits, the crisp dress shirts, the polished dress shoes. In their place, loose hoodies, sneakers, and gym shorts, even in public. Comfort clothing, yes, but also armor. Clothing that said, I don't want to talk. Clothing that said, don't recognize me. He no longer walked with the natural confidence of a man who felt grounded. His gait slowed, his head lowered. A body language expert who observed Harry during one of his few public outings said, there's a weight on his shoulders that wasn't there before. And it's not physical, it's psychological. Insiders within his foundation began to notice, too. Meetings were postponed. Follow-ups were left hanging. Deadlines passed without response. It wasn't just burnout, it was disengagement. Staff began shouldering more responsibility while Meghan took on the face of the operation. Harry, meanwhile, became more of a silent partner. Present in title, absent in presence. What happened to the man who once climbed mountains with wounded veterans? Who gave stirring speeches to global audiences about mental health? Who was photographed holding babies in refugee camps and laughing with schoolchildren? The answer may lie in something simpler than scandal or betrayal. He lost his compass. For all the restrictions that came with royal life, the protocols, the public pressures, the rules, there was at least direction. In California, there was space, but also chaos. And Harry, by his own admission, has never done well with chaos. He was a man who functioned best with purpose. Strip that away, and what remained? The Harry we see now, hunched over a controller, ignoring phone calls, ordering whiskey at midnight, doesn't match the man who once stood tall in uniform, accepting applause from wounded heroes. And perhaps that's what makes this moment so heartbreaking. We are not witnessing the downfall of a villain or the exposure of a fraud. We are witnessing a man quietly lose touch with the version of himself that once made him proud. When asked recently during a podcast interview whether he still felt like he was doing meaningful work, Harry's response was telling. He paused, then said, I think. I'm trying. I'm still figuring things out. It was the most candid line in an otherwise scripted conversation, and it echoed far more loudly than any prepared statement could. Trying. Still figuring things out. It's a long fall from a man who once seemed to have it all figured out, who once stood on stage and declared that every wounded soldier had value, who once told young men struggling with depression that they were not alone. And now, he is alone. What happened to the old Harry? He didn't disappear overnight. He faded, slowly, through missed calls, through late-night binges, through the silence between him and his brother, through the cracks in his marriage, through the glare of a screen that keeps him occupied, but not fulfilled. That's the tragedy. The next section explores how Harry's relocation to the United States, particularly his immersion into Meghan's social and cultural world, deepened this sense of disconnection. He left one home without ever truly finding another. And the American dream may have left him feeling more lost than liberated. When Prince Harry stepped off the plane in California, it wasn't just the end of a transatlantic flight. It was, in his mind, the end of a chapter, a definitive break from the institution that raised him, restricted him, and ultimately, in his view, betrayed him. His arrival was meant to mark the beginning of freedom, family, and personal fulfillment. Sunlight, sea air, and anonymity, far from the intrusive flashbulbs of the British tabloids and the pressures of royal protocol. But dreams rarely survive unchanged in daylight. California, for all its promise of reinvention, quickly proved to be an unfamiliar world. The culture, the values, the pace, everything was different. Prince Harry had entered not just a new country, but an entirely foreign ecosystem, one shaped by performance, social capital, and endless networking. It was Meghan's world, not his. Sources close to the couple described the early days in Montecito as hopeful, even joyful. The house was large, elegant, wrapped in nature. It had enough privacy to shield them from drones and photographers. They planted a garden. They took long walks. Harry doted on Archie. The family, at least briefly, felt united. But beneath the surface, cracks began forming, small at first, then unmistakable. Harry, according to insiders, struggled to adapt. The tight-knit communities he once knew in the UK, old friends, family staff, military comrades, were suddenly absent. The people now surrounding him were unfamiliar. Agents, publicists, producers, corporate brand consultants. People whose language was wrapped in PR phrases and digital strategy, not in trust or history. He didn't know who to trust, said one acquaintance familiar with their transition. Everyone had an angle. Everyone was selling something. It wasn't like the army, or even the palace. It was transactional. And Harry isn't built for that. Where Meghan thrived, navigating meetings, building connections, mastering the PR playbook, Harry recoiled. He attended pitches, joined Zooms, made efforts to contribute. But often, he said little. His background didn't prepare him for Hollywood boardrooms or content development sessions. One insider from a major streaming platform described Harry as quiet, almost uncertain, during early meetings for the couple's proposed projects. He had opinions, but he didn't know how to drive them forward. Meghan did most of the talking. That imbalance soon became more than professional. It became personal. Friends noticed a shift. Meghan's calendar began to fill up, meetings, appearances, creative sessions. Harry's, less so. Left alone more frequently at home, he withdrew further. The house that was once a refuge started to feel like a well-furnished cage. He tried adapting. He explored wellness practices, visited therapists, took up new hobbies. But the more he tried to integrate into this Californian lifestyle, the more he seemed to lose himself. It wasn't rejection, said a friend. It was more like erosion. Piece by piece, he just stopped trying to fit in. Attempts to make new friendships proved difficult. Montecito is home to a discreet but exclusive class of wealthy elites, media moguls, tech giants, legacy families. Though some extended hospitality, many were wary. Harry, after all, was not just any celebrity. He was a global figure with deep baggage. The couple's high-profile interviews had made them polarizing. Invitations slowed. Social connections faded. And Meghan, despite her own share of public scrutiny, maintained her rhythm. Media appearances, fashion launches, brand development. Harry, meanwhile, seemed to stall. Those from the UK, who tried to stay in touch, were met with obstacles. He was never around, one former royal aide noted. Or he just didn't want to talk. Either way, he stopped replying. As the months passed, Harry's sense of alienation deepened. California didn't feel like a home. It felt like a set where everyone else had a script but him. Even the environment didn't offer the relief he expected. The sun, once a symbol of new beginnings, became oppressive. The vastness of the estate, once comforting, began to feel empty. The silence was no longer peace, it was loneliness. He missed the gray skies, said one source. He missed the rain. He missed walking without someone asking what he was doing there. He missed not being a stranger. There were also cultural disconnects. In Britain, Harry was blunt, direct, and occasionally irreverent. In California, those traits didn't always land well. His jokes were sometimes misunderstood. His tone, at times, interpreted as curt. The informality that endeared him to British troops didn't always translate in California's polished influencer circles. He wasn't offensive, said one media contact. He was just out of sync. The weight of this misalignment grew heavier with each passing month. Harry began spending more time away from Meghan, from Montecito, from the life they had built. He stayed in hotels under aliases, traveled solo to events, and even scheduled solo retreats meant to recharge him emotionally. But these weren't spiritual breaks. They were escapes. California had promised him sanctuary. What it offered instead was an endless reminder of what he'd given up: familiarity, routine, kinship, and most painfully, identity. He was no longer Captain Wales, no longer the people's prince, no longer the man who made crowds cheer from balconies and brought smiles to hospital rooms. In California, he was Meghan's husband, one half of a brand, a man whose every step outside triggered whispers and whose every appearance was dissected for signs of discord. A close friend from London visited him briefly in 2022. "I was shocked," the friend admitted. He was different. The laugh was still there, but muted. He spoke about California like someone describing a rental home, not a place they planned to live forever. He even said, "It's all right for now." That stuck with me. He didn't say it was home, just all right. Over time, Harry stopped inviting visitors. Old friends say they felt unwelcome, not by hostility, but by distance. The man who once responded within minutes now needed prompting. Some messages went unanswered entirely. Others returned days later with vague replies. Even in professional engagements, Harry's presence diminished. Where once he stood center stage, now he took a supporting role. Meghan led. Harry followed or simply stayed absent. The most glaring example came during Meghan's promotional tour for a new venture. She appeared in multiple interviews. Harry was scheduled to join one. He canceled last minute, citing exhaustion. But exhaustion is not an explanation, it's a symptom. His absence wasn't due to a busy schedule. It was an illness. It was disconnection. From her. From their mission. From the California dream. And in private, Meghan was feeling the strain. Friends say she grew increasingly frustrated. Not just with his lack of presence, but with his detachment. She had fought to build something in California. A life. A platform. A legacy. But Harry, despite her efforts, wasn't joining her in that construction. He was drifting. And no amount of PR polish could fix what was breaking inside their walls. Harry's solitude deepened. He took up late-night walks, avoiding eye contact with neighbors. Staff at a private members club in Santa Barbara noted he came alone, stayed briefly, rarely spoke. When approached, he was polite but distant. One club member said, he looked like someone who wanted to belong but didn't know how. The move to California wasn't a mistake. But it wasn't the solution either. It was a necessary break, but perhaps not the right destination. Harry, in seeking refuge, landed in a world that valued visibility over vulnerability, performance over presence. And in that world, he lost touch with who he was. California didn't betray him, but it didn't embrace him either. And as we follow his journey deeper into solitude, we'll explore how his mental health has suffered, not just from the public scrutiny, but from the internal battle between who he was, who he is, and who he's expected to be. There is a quiet war that plays out behind the polished exteriors of luxury estates and royal titles. It doesn't involve cameras, speeches, or scandalous headlines. It unfolds in silence, in the pause before a reply, in the blank stare at a ceiling at 3 a.m., in the unopened text messages, in the skipped therapy appointment, in the half-eaten meal left untouched on a tray. For Prince Harry, that war is no longer private. His struggles with mental health have never been entirely hidden. Years before he stepped back from royal duties, Harry spoke publicly about the trauma of losing his mother, Princess Diana. He admitted he didn't cry at her funeral. He admitted he'd buried it so deeply that, for years, he acted out partying, fighting, shutting people out. He eventually sought therapy, and for a time, he appeared to be winning the internal war. He became an advocate for mental health. He partnered with sports stars and global figures. He launched initiatives. He opened doors for conversations others were afraid to have. But there is a vast difference between speaking about healing and actually feeling healed. In recent months, those close to Harry and those observing his behavior have grown concerned that the man who once championed mental health is now silently spiraling. Not because of hypocrisy, but because of pain. The kind of pain that lingers long after the applause fades and the cameras move on. A source close to the Archwell Foundation described Harry's emotional state in troubling terms. It's like the lights are on, but no one's home. He's not angry. He's not lashing out. He's just blank. Like he's stuck in some kind of internal fog. And the more people try to reach him, the further he recedes. Signs of depression, according to mental health experts, don't always appear as sadness. Sometimes they manifest as disinterest, avoidance, chronic fatigue, overeating or undereating, excessive screen time, sleeplessness. The very behaviors Harry's been displaying, erratic schedules, missed calls, isolation, gaming late into the night, disconnection from work and family. All symptoms, all signals. But the question remains, does he recognize them? According to insiders, Meghan encouraged Harry to re-engage with therapy in 2023, after a particularly tense period of avoidance and emotional shutdown. He agreed, briefly. But the sessions didn't last. He grew increasingly defensive during conversations about responsibility, accountability, and long-term patterns. A therapist who worked with the couple at the time reportedly told Meghan, "He's carrying a boulder of resentment and grief, and it's not going to move unless he wants it to." But Harry, at least according to those around him, isn't ready to move that boulder. Not yet. One contributing factor may be a growing sense of identity loss. In the UK, he was a prince, a soldier, a son, a brother, a public figure with a defined role. In California, those definitions are gone. He is no longer Captain Wales. He is no longer a working royal. And the title of Duke of Sussex carries little weight in Montecito's social circles. Without the structure of his old life, Harry appears adrift. Another factor, more painful still, is the unresolved trauma tied to his mother's death. In recent interviews, Harry has revisited the night she died, the flashing bulbs, the silence of the palace, the absence of comfort. But revisiting trauma does not heal it. It sometimes reopens wounds. And when those wounds aren't cared for, they become festering sources of bitterness, confusion, and self-isolation. A close friend from his military service described it this way: "He never stopped being that 12-year-old walking behind her coffin. He just grew into that pain. He wears it like armor. It protects him, but it also keeps everyone else out." This emotional armor may explain why even Meghan, the person closest to him, is struggling to reach him. The very walls that helped him survive his past are now blocking his present. People dealing with this kind of psychological exhaustion often exhibit avoidance behaviors. They shut down emotionally. They disengage from loved ones. They seek comfort in routine, in mindless distraction, in numbing activities like Harry's late-night gaming or fast food binges. These habits aren't laziness. They are coping mechanisms. Inside the hotel suite where he spends more and more time, the markers of emotional struggle are unmistakable. Curtains remain drawn. Screens stay on long after he's fallen asleep. Food is ordered in excess, not out of indulgence, but out of inertia. One hotel staff member described a moment when Harry ordered 3 different entrees and barely touched any of them. It wasn't hunger, they said. It was like he didn't know what he wanted. He just didn't want to feel empty. Perhaps the most telling signs come from his relationship to time. Depression distorts time. Days bleed into nights. Motivation collapses. Even the passage of a week can feel meaningless. Hotel employees say Harry often loses track of days. He forgets when he checked in. He delays checkouts without purpose. He reschedules everything. He lives in a kind of emotional twilight, said one staffer. Always tired. Always somewhere else in his head. Despite these signs, those around Harry say he still believes he can push through on his own. He resists medication. He's skeptical of long-term therapy. He insists, when asked directly, that he's just tired or taking some time. But it's been months, and the signs aren't abating. One of the more alarming developments is his growing dependence on isolation. In a world that encourages connection, especially in times of psychological crisis, Harry is leaning in the opposite direction. The more worried people become, the less he wants to see them. He's closed off from friends, avoided family, and even distanced himself from colleagues who once supported him unconditionally. "I worry he's beginning to romanticize his solitude," said a mental health advisor familiar with his case. That's dangerous. Because once someone starts believing they're better off alone, they stop asking for help. And that's when the descent becomes irreversible. In conversations with old friends, there's a shared tone of helplessness. They remember the Harry who made everyone laugh, who danced barefoot at weddings, who stood by your side in any crisis. And now, they speak of a man who doesn't answer texts, who cancels plans, who won't return home, not even for birthdays or important events. And then there's the issue of purpose. Purpose is often the anchor for those managing depression. It gives weight to the day, motivation to the actions, context to the pain. But what is Harry's purpose now? The Netflix projects have slowed. The podcast deals have evaporated. The public goodwill has fractured. The Archwell Foundation, while still operational, is increasingly led by others. Meghan continues to push forward. Harry, it seems, is pausing indefinitely. It's unclear whether he has considered any form of intervention or whether anyone around him is willing to push for one. His world has become so tightly controlled, so insulated, that those who could step in feel blocked out. Even his family in the UK, those who might have the authority to confront him, remain at a distance. Pride, past grievances, and years of conflict keep them silent. Some insiders quietly admit that unless something significant happens, an emergency, a scandal, a personal health event, Harry may continue drifting. Not because he wants to, but because drifting is easier than confronting the tide. But not all hope is lost. People who've dealt with similar mental health battles often describe hitting a moment of clarity, a break in the fog. For Harry, that moment may still be coming. It could be triggered by a voice he still trusts, a cause he still believes in, a memory too powerful to ignore. The question is whether he'll recognize it when it arrives, or whether he'll let it pass, unseen, like so many missed calls. What Harry needs now isn't public sympathy. It's not applause. It's not another headline or interview. What he needs is internal courage, the kind he once had when he faced real battlefields, the kind he showed when he founded the Invictus Games, the kind that made him step outside of tradition and fight for the woman he loves. That courage is still there. It's just buried, beneath exhaustion, beneath grief, beneath months of silence. The next chapter will examine the growing pressure from the couple's failing ventures, how the tension from their commercial disappointments is worsening Harry's emotional collapse, and why Meghan is being forced to shoulder the brand alone while Harry continues to pull away. When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle signed their multi-million-dollar deal with Netflix in 2020, it was hailed as a masterstroke. They had just made the historic decision to step back from royal duties, leaving behind titles, taxpayer funding, and the comforts of palace life. In return, they would build their own legacy, a media empire powered by values, storytelling, and social impact. The Netflix partnership, estimated at over $100 million, was supposed to be their launchpad. But few inside the entertainment industry believed the road would be easy. Streaming companies don't pay for potential. They pay for performance. And as the months turned into years, the pressure mounted not just on the couple as public figures, but particularly on Harry, whose visible engagement with the content and leadership of Archewell became increasingly inconsistent. The first documentary series, Harry and Meghan, offered a raw glimpse into their lives. It drew record viewership and dominated global headlines. But it also polarized audiences. Supporters praised the transparency, critics called it self-indulgent and staged. For Netflix, controversy was not necessarily a problem, it brought clicks. But internally, there were growing concerns about the couple's ability to consistently deliver compelling, original content with broad appeal. Behind the scenes, meetings grew tense. Creative pitches were submitted, some accepted, many rejected. Producers working on early projects described difficulty in getting direct input from Harry. While Meghan often led meetings, clarified narratives, and worked through feedback, Harry was reportedly distracted, detached, and, at times, completely absent. He showed up late, said one producer involved in an early project. He was polite, but clearly not invested. He didn't challenge ideas, didn't push direction, didn't offer much beyond surface-level comments. We were trying to build a long-term slate of programming, and he looked like he just wanted to be somewhere else. This lack of engagement began to erode confidence. Netflix, like any media company, thrives on energy, ideas, momentum, agility. When their star creators started fading into the background, executives began to reassess expectations. One source within Netflix admitted, "We expected partnership. What we got was sporadic involvement." Meghan was the driver. Harry felt like a passenger. Pressure also mounted from within Archewell. The foundation, originally envisioned as a hybrid between charitable organization and media hub, struggled to maintain a clear identity. Staff turnover became an issue. Several employees quietly departed, citing confusion around roles, blurred lines between activism and commerce, and a growing sense of disorganization. Meetings were scheduled without Harry. Deliverables fell behind. Some campaigns were delayed or abandoned altogether. One former team member said, "We weren't sure who was in charge." Meghan had vision, but she was stretched thin. Harry had the name, but he wasn't present. And without both, we were just floating. By late 2022, Archewell's internal structure was under scrutiny. Donors questioned outcomes. Collaborators hesitated to commit. And all the while, the media narrative began to shift from admiration to doubt. The glow of their initial independence began to dull. In the middle of this decline, Harry's emotional disengagement intensified. Sources say he stopped attending some of the creative development meetings altogether. At times, he would cancel last minute or join by Zoom only to remain silent, camera off. Other times, he'd excuse himself before key decisions were made. When asked directly about his role in Archewell and their media projects, Harry would often deflect, saying, "We're working through it," or "It's a